Hey friends, Peter Fasciano here. Welcome back and thanks for tuning into my series on the Canon M6 Mark II. If you haven't noticed, this is a repost of my last week's video. I had a rookie mistake. I deleted my footage off of the computer, and then when I was on my YouTube studio on my cell phone, I ended up accidentally deleting it from my account instead of just deleting it from my liked videos. So this week, I'm going to go ahead and cover focus peaking. I'm going to show you how to set up the back button focus and when you can use it, and all the different focusing methods that you have with the camera. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into today's video, which was last week's video, but anyway, let's get into it. All right, so the first method that I want to talk about is the manual focus peaking option that you have on the M6 Mark II. Whenever you are shooting a higher frame rate, you lose the ability, like 120 frames per second, you lose the ability to autofocus. And every once in a while, when you're shooting stills or you're shooting wildlife or you're doing something and the autofocus points don't quite lock onto your subject, you have the ability to what's called focus peak. And essentially all this is a band of either red, green, or yellow highlights that will show you where your focusing point is. How you activate this, you're going to click on your menu. You're going to be looking at your red camera icon, menu number 8, manual focus peaking settings. Make sure peaking is on. I have my level set at high and I have my color set at red, but you have the option to go yellow or blue, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. If you look at the bottom of the bag, you'll see a red focus line, and as I move the focusing ring, you'll see that red line move up your viewfinder or your LCD screen. And it's as simple as getting this band stretched across your object. You'll see the edges or the corners of your object light up that specific color, and you're good to go. Shoot your video, take your picture, and you can call it good. This is what the yellow band looks like. And this is what the blue band looks like. So depending upon what objects you guys are shooting, whether it's photography or video, you'll figure out which color works best for you. And again, this is whenever you are losing the ability to autofocus. When you're shooting in high frame rates, 120 frames per second, the M6 Mark II does not allow you to autofocus. And in my situation, when I'm taking pictures of wildlife and there's a lot of twigs and branches in the way, it's very difficult for my autofocus points to lock onto my subject. Even if I have it on a single point autofocus, it still will kind of catch a twig, a branch, or a leaf that kind of flutters a little bit, and the autofocus points will go to that. So this is a valuable tool for me whenever I absolutely need to lock on focus. My next focusing method is going to be setting up the back button focus. Back button focus is nothing more than assigning your focus to a button on the back of the camera as opposed to half pressing the shutter up in the front. This camera comes pre-programmed with the autofocus manual focus button assigned to focus already. If you don't want to fully commit to back button focus, you don't have to do anything. Just leave the camera the way that it is. You have the half press shutter button and you have the back button focus already set up. But if by chance you want to deactivate the half press shutter, you simply go into your menu. You want to go to the orange camera icon, function number 3, operation and others. Go ahead and click OK. The first option you have is the half press shutter. Go ahead and change that over to metering, and then that way whenever you half press the shutter, you're not going to refocus. If you notice, the face track and the eye detect is completely white, but as soon as I push the button in the back, you'll notice it turned to blue. And now I have assigned my focus directly to the back button and have assigned the half press shutter as just metering. A quick note, whenever you see a blue box, that means you are going to autofocus track, and every time you see a green box, you have single point focus without tracking. Now, as far as why you would want to use back button focus, this has everything to do with what you're shooting. In my situation, when I'm taking pictures of wildlife, the wildlife's moving, and if I am tracking the object and taking pictures, every time I release the shutter button and then press it again, the autofocus points may jump to a different spot. So by utilizing the back button focus, as soon as I lock my focus in place, I can go ahead and take as many pictures as I want, and the focus point will not change. Even if I release the shutter button and take pictures again, as long as I don't move or my subject doesn't move, I don't have to refocus. Right now my camera is set to servo autofocus eye detect. When I press on the back button, you'll notice that the eye detect is blue, And as long as I hold down the button, the camera will track the face, track the eye. The second I let it go, it's no longer going to track it. It'll be out of focus, and then I have to press the button again. And as I'm tracking, I can go ahead and take the picture, and as long as my thumb is depressed on the back button, it'll automatically track it. Another method of focus will be your one shot. If you notice, the square around his eye is now green, and if I hold the button and change positions, you will notice that the object will fall out of focus. If you or the object moves positions, you have to release the button and then depress it again, and it'll refocus. The objects move, you have to re-release the button and then press it again to refocus. And then from this point, you no longer have to press the back button. This way, as long as you and your subject don't move, you can take as many pictures as you want without having to refocus. Anytime the object moves, you can recompose, push the button again, and you're all set, ready to go. If tracking your object is not that important to you, then you can go ahead and change your autofocus method to spot autofocus. You have two different spot autofocus. You have your very detailed smaller one with the double square, and then you have your larger autofocus point covering more area. I'm going to go ahead and select spot autofocus. You can see the very center of the screen now has that small square, as opposed to the 1-point autofocus being a little bit larger. The spot autofocus allows you to get into a smaller area with more pinpoint control, and with the Mark II touchscreen, you can actually move that autofocus point anywhere you want. Once I have that composed, depress the back button, turns green, and as long as you or your camera do not move, you can take a picture all you want. But as soon as the object moves, you can recompose, refocus, and shoot again. This autofocus point also works with the servo mode for tracking, but it's going to be less accurate because you have a smaller autofocus point. When you press and hold the back button, as long as that object stays within that square, it'll track it, but the second it moves out of that square, it's going to drop out of focus. And just as a reminder, if you're tracking an object, you must depress and hold the back button. Otherwise, as soon as the object starts to move, it'll be out of focus. It's going to be a little bit easier to track an object when you're set to the 1-point autofocus, which is a little bit larger. Depress and hold the back button. As the object moves, as long as it stays in that box, it'll stay in focus. As I hold down the button and the object moves out of the box, you'll notice that it drops out of focus, and as soon as it jumps back into the box, it'll acquire the focus again, and you're good to go. In certain situations, you may not want to use a specific autofocus point, and you want to just cover a specific area or a zone. So with this situation, again with the touchscreen, you can move this zone anywhere you want, and as you can tell, as I move these zones, the autofocus is going to pick up something that's found inside that individual box and not outside the box. So anytime an object moves into or out of that individual spot, depress the back button, and as this moves out of that zone, it'll drop out of focus. And if something moves back into that zone, it should reacquire the object, and you're good to go. If you don't want the object to be tracked, then just simply move from servo to one shot, depress the button, and now you're locked into that specific zone. As soon as you've locked in, you can let go of the button and then take the pictures. And if that object moves, or if you move, you have to recompose, depress the back button again, get your focus, you can let go, and then take pictures again. So for me, in my situation, since I'm taking pictures of animals, specifically birds, and they move all the time, I want to make sure that I am set to face detect tracking, and I want to make sure that my one shot is set to servo, and that way whenever I depress the back button, I can track my object anywhere they go. So again, just like with everything that I'm talking about with this series, you need to make sure that you can go through these, figure out what works best for you and the objects that you shoot or the videos that you take. Play around with it and figure out what works best for you. I jump all over the place with this. Every once in a while, like I had mentioned earlier, the autofocus jumps around. I can't lock on, so I have to switch my lens over to focus peaking. And every once in a while, my individual single point autofocus, the spot autofocus, works well. But again, these situations are unique to me. You need to figure out what works best for you. So my last situation of focusing kind of combines the best of both worlds. You end up with the accuracy of a single point focus along with the tracking. So here's how you do that. You're going to select your menu button. You're going to select your camera function 2 with the orange camera icon, and you're going to select your initial autofocus point set for face tracking. So in the situation that I have here, I have my single autofocus, and as I back button focus, no matter where this object goes, it's now going to track it. I've been messing around with this a lot lately, and it seems like this is my go-to. Anytime I have an object that the individual tracking doesn't work and I have to switch to my single point, the object will jump out of the single point and won't track it any longer. So this situation is just about perfect for me. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So just as a review, when you are doing your focus peaking, as soon as you turn it on in the camera, it's always going to be on. So whenever you change your camera to manual focus, it'll be there. Or if you have a switch on your lens that you switch to manual focus, focus peaking will automatically appear. All you have to do is figure out which color works best for you. And as far as the back button focus, one of the biggest reminders that I have for you, if you want to continuously track your object, you need to make sure that you are depressing that button in the back. As soon as you release the button, you're going to lose the tracking ability. If all you want to do is focus your object one time, you can just depress the button, release it, and then as long as you or your object don't move, you can go ahead and take as many pictures as you want without refocusing. And the last thing, all those different autofocus points and all those different methods of focusing, that's going to be completely up to you to figure out which one works best for you. I am all over the place, like I had mentioned earlier. I'm all over the place when I use my autofocusing. I'm on single point, I'm on that larger single point, I'm on the face tracking single point autofocus. It just depends, and you're going to find out very quickly that you're going to be jumping around as well. So I think that's going to do it for this week. If you're new here, my name is Peter Fasciano. Consider subscribing, give me a thumbs up, put on that bell notification. There's going to be plenty of other videos to come. Actually, not a whole lot. I think I'm pretty much exhausted on the functions and the features of the camera. I think I have maybe 2 or 3 more to go. So with all that being said, again, let's run through it. Like, subscribe, share, turn on that bell notification, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.